Hello.
Hello.
Ooh, that's loud.
Hello.
There we go. How you doing today, Scott?
Can you all
I'm
hear
doing
me?
good. Well, there he is. He puts us on first. Don't tell us.
Is it working
right?
now?
I'm over there dancing, doing the vogue,
Uh-oh.
waiting
I
for
don't know
Mike to
what
come on.
I don't know what was going on with it. It seems like I got a really bad delay. It's been fighting me.
Yeah, it's Oklahoma. 10-minute
It
delay.
is. So we don't have a delay or anything on your end, right? Is everything good on your end?
I'm good on my end.
All good.
Okay. Yeah, I've been trying to let it to get me to go, and it kept saying low internet, low internet, low internet, low internet. Like, good grief.
Yeah.
Driving me crazy. How are y'all tonight?
Doing good.
Warm now
complaint.
that I'm in the house.
What's temperature?
It was 11 degrees. It got warmer.
Oh, okay. It's 34 here, but we got a big warm front coming through at 45 tomorrow. So time to take a sun bath, I guess.
Rub it in.
It was 60 degrees today, but it was windy.
Yeah. Got that coming for the next couple of months.
Yeah, 60 is not too bad though. I enjoyed 60.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's real comfortable in the wintertime.
Yes. I got my rooster shirt on tonight.
All right.
Nice.
Taco doodle doo.
So I've got I wrote down some questions for Amanda tonight, guys. Amanda's going to be our guest tonight. Amanda, the Bigfoot lady. This will be her second time to come back, and we're going to. I got some questions for her, and I think we're going to talk about some things about the museum that she works at. It's got some pretty cool stuff in there. I went back and was looking through some things. Have you all looked at her museum much?
I looked at it for a little while, but I didn't look through all the pictures. But it looks like it's a nice little museum.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff in there.
I was going through all the TikToks today.
That's what I did too. I went and looked at her TikTok. Let's see if I can get this to.
Yeah, for everybody in the chat, if you have TikTok or have a TikTok account, definitely subscribe because she's got some pretty good TikToks out there.
Yeah, she does. I was going through. I didn't know she had that many TikToks. I was like, I'll go through these, and I was like, there is no way I can watch all of these in one day. So I watched what I could. Yeah, she answers a lot of questions on there too. If anybody's interested, she goes on and I noticed that she'll take like fan questions and stuff, and she'll answer them. And she even breaks some of the things down to where I can understand it for kids. Because sometimes I don't catch on to everything real quick.
We're kids.
Yeah.
We're just old kids.
That's
not you, Jesse. You're the spring chicken, but I'm the old rooster. And there's Chicken Man right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, seems like there's a lot of roosters around anymore. All right, I think I just about got everything. There we go. I think we're good now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Amanda on. Thank you, moderators, for showing up tonight, and we'll go ahead and bring Amanda on, and we'll ask her 500 questions. No, I don't have that many questions. I'm not going to be that bad tonight. Like we did poor Travis. I didn't even know we kept him on here that long. He'll probably never come back.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yes. How
Loud
you
and clear.
doing, Amanda?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Good.
What's your
So
weather
are you
down?
busy?
Weather down here has finally turned winter. It was in the low 20s over the last week or so. Then we had a warm front, brought in some rain, and then it's turned right off back cold again.
Yeah, that's what we're having up here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been horrible here. We had to deal with 60 degrees today.
I don't want to hear that.
Let me go get my flip flops back out. I'll come join
Yeah.
you.
Right.
The only bad thing is we had like 20-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I hate windy days. I do not like windy days.
You should be used to it by now in Oklahoma, though.
Yeah.
I know. I always gripe about it. I'm like, oh, it's windy today. I don't want to go outside. I hate being out in the wind. All the dust is blowing everywhere, and your allergies are messed up. And the cedar trees right now, the cedar is really high, and I'm allergic to cedar. That's the time of year that it really bothers me is the cedar trees. But I don't cut them down because I think they're pretty. I probably should, but I don't. Yeah, I was looking at your museum on your TikTok, and you had something I have never seen before. I was like, wow, that's got to be a one and only.
All right. So I'm going to cut you off real quick right there. Just sorry. I just want to make it full disclosure to everybody and everybody who's listening. It is not my museum. As much as I would love to hold that title, all of that credit goes to Mr. David Becerra. He is the genius and mastermind behind the whole thing. He deserves all the credit because he really has put his heart and soul into this place. You know, it was his dream to open a museum, some kind of, for kids, as a way to, get some information out there, make it a family attraction. So that way you can get that little spark of imagination going, and also just let people in general know that, hey, here's all the information you wanted. It's all here in a building. You can all look at it in one place. So I just have the great pleasure of having worked there for about 3 years now. So yeah, you can say my museum. I just want to say it's not actually mine. I don't own it. I just work there.
Well, you have something I have never seen before there at the museum.
And that is
a buttocks cast.
Yeah, that is Mr. Paul Freeman's buttocks cast.
I've never seen one of those. I don't know if y'all seen it. It's pretty cool.
It is really neat. It's really fascinating because a lot of it and there's a couple other non-foot casts that are there that is on display in the museum, and it's kind of a way to show, obviously a humorous twist because there's a buttocks print when you're walking through the museum, but also it really is a science standpoint, that they have gluteus maximus just like us and other primates do. Not that I feel we're a primate, but and in that cast you can see that it is a hairy backside and everything. Right. And plus where it was sitting, where it was on the riverbank and all this kind of stuff, the whole story that goes along with that particular cast is what makes it so fascinating to kind of take more of the humorous side off of it.
That's awesome.
So do you have any theories at the museum, or does anybody have any theories about why are they mostly always found by water or following water? I know a lot of people always said, they're always by the water.
There's definitely theories that go in multiple directions, whether if you're just looking at it from the great ape theory, obviously, it's looking for a natural water source. So, most ancient tribes always set up camp, for lack of a better word, around river basins and things, because, you have your natural water source to go along with your food source. So, you know, bears, deer, everything all work around water. You know, everything has to have water to survive. And then if you're going into the more spiritual aspects, you know, there's whole bunches of rabbit holes you can go down about, you know, the power of water and energy and, you know, spiritual power and cleansing, you know, all that kind of stuff you can go down. So, like I said, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
You know, it was whenever I lived at my granny's, we had that stuff happened a lot. And I remember, you know, Granny even always used to tell us, she'd say, you know, they always follow the water. And my grandpa was full blood Cherokee, and they always said, you know, you'll always find they use the waterways like, I guess, highways. That's their kind of how they travel. But it was weird because, you know, they had never had any trouble at their house, and this happened before I was ever born, and up through me growing up, it happened at Granny's almost every night, and it happened for my mom like that when they were children, but it never bothered them until my uncle decided to be goofy and go down there. Whenever he got back from Vietnam, he would go down there with some friends and their girlfriends, and they'd go spook hunting. And one night they ran into something, and it, you know, ran on top of his car and all, and then they got scared and drove back to Granny's, and after that it never went away. It was always there until she passed away. Then after she passed away, it just left. It left as fast as it came. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was weird because my cousin lives on the property by herself, and you would think that if it was going to bother somebody, it would bother her because she's down there alone in the middle of nowhere. And she said, no, she said, it's quiet anymore. There ain't nothing down there. So I thought
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it was after the girls when they were all down there when Granny was alive, because all the girls were down there. And now that she passed away, all the girls aren't down there. Maybe. I don't know. It was kind of weird.
That is interesting. I guess we was talking the last time I was on, you know, you definitely should look into, you know, some of the blood stuff and all of that with, you know, once your granny's, you know, blood type or anything like that, and see if it had anything to do with any of the crazy paranormal stuff that was going on. And like I said, especially once she passed away and all of it just stopped.
Right.
It definitely leads me into that theory anyways.
Yeah, because it was bad. I remember it. Golly, we were so scared. And then it, you know, just like it just stopped. It ceased to be down there, and it used to be terrible. I remember I hated being down there. Hated it. So you've been asked to be a speaker somewhere.
Yes. So with the growth of my my TikTok page, Mr. Scott Granger with Sasquatch Fishing Outfitters up here in North Georgia got a hold of me and got me in contact with Neil Ryder with BigfootTalks.com. And Mr. Ryder, is putting on the first ever Encounters Conference here in Georgia coming up in March. And he asked me if I wanted to be a speaker at that conference. So I am currently in the works of getting ready for that. I helped him in design in a lot of that, as I have a little bit of graphic design knowledge. And yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm also super excited because, you know, it's another big step in this whole thing. And like I said, I don't know where the Lord put me at when he wanted me to start doing this, but here I am. So I'm just along for the ride. But yes, I got a plug for it. I just posted it on my TikTok and other social media earlier today. And the link to the website encountersconference.com is on all my social media for people to go in and buy tickets. It'll be in Jonesboro, Georgia, March 14th and 15th. Let me actually double check and make sure those dates are right. I'm pretty sure it's 14th and 15th.
Well, I have no doubt that you're going to do. I have no doubt you're going to do a great job.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the confidence in me.
Yeah, that's going to be really neat. And if you want to, you can send us anything you want to, and we will help you promote it on our page too. We'll put it on our Facebook for you or whatever if you want us to. We got
Awesome. I
like
really
close to
appreciate that. Yes, I will definitely do that. Yeah, Neil has said he's got people from Florida and somebody in Kansas already who have reached out to him for tickets for it. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be awesome. So yeah,
That's cool.
myself, Scott and Sheila Granger, and several other names are going to be presenters at this conference, and it's going to be a little bit different or different format than most other kind of conferences. It's going to, because the name Encounters Conference, it's going to be an open format, you know, for Q&A, where people like almost in podcast form, you know, people can come and, you know, share their encounters and experiences in a safe place. You know, it's not going to be there to be like, you know, hokey and that kind of stuff, you know, where people can come and ask questions of us. We can ask questions of other people, just as kind of a good hub gathering place for encounteries and witnesses to gather. So I'm kind of excited and hope that it's going to take off.
That sounds awesome. That's a
Yeah, it
great
does.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't went to any conferences either. I've thought about going to some. We have here in Oklahoma, we have a museum, a Bigfoot museum.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't even went to it. I know the lady down there. I've spoke to her several times, and she's got a big poster up for my channel and everything down there. But she, I think what started hers is she had an encounter, and it kind of went from there. You know, a lot of people they don't believe at first until they have that encounter, and then they're like, "Oh my God!"
That way for a lot of people. For a lot of people, it is. I hear that all the time with encounters and stuff that people share with me working at the museum. I take witness reports all the time, and I hear that constantly, like, I never gave this two thoughts, or I thought this is all just a bunch of baloney, you know, that kind of stuff. And then until it was literally standing there in front of me, so I had, there it is, you know, that you can't say it's fake now.
Mm-hmm.
I found something the other day that blew my mind that I didn't even know that had happened. In the county that I live in here, I was actually investigating something else that a lady had asked me to look into here in Oklahoma. And when I was going through it, I just happened to run onto it. And I found out that I think it was maybe in the 70s, I think, our sheriff of our county actually done a police report that he shot at a Bigfoot in our county. It was in the second story of a barn. And I went back to make sure that he had really done it. And he did. He had done a full report. The sheriff and the undersheriff both said that they went out to a house, which is only about 8 miles from me. And they said that the lady was hearing something in her barn. And whenever they pulled in, they pulled the patrol cars out, and they, of course, spotlighted the barn, you know, and they seen it. It was in the second story of the barn. It was in the loft. And they said it jumped out of the loft, but the way that oh, sorry, somebody showed up. Dog was crazy.
Werewolf.
Yeah.
I keep looking this way because my cats are hanging out in here with me, and they didn't like that too much.
Bet those earphones didn't sound good on that barking either.
Wasn't bad.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully she'll be quiet. I'm gonna feed her to Bigfoot. But yeah, Bigfoot. He said the way he jumped out of the barn, it was so high up, but it was the way that it jumped and the way that it landed. It's like it wasn't, you know, it wasn't hard for it. It didn't hit hard. It's like it was real natural how it just kind of just hopped out and kind of landed like a cat. And it ran, and then for some reason they shot at it. I wouldn't have shot at it, but they both shot at it. They emptied their service revolvers at it, and it ran toward the river bottoms. But he guessed it to be approximately 10 to 11 foot, and he said probably around 400 to 500 pounds.
Wow,
so I was like, wow, that was pretty big. But the lady was having some kind of like what we had at Granny's. Her report was every night it was coming up, slapping on her house. She could hear it breathing, And the night that she called the sheriff, she said it was a little bit worse because it started trying to open the door. It was rattling the doorknob, and she got really, really nervous.
Yeah, that's scary. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got welcome that off that porch.
Right?
Yeah, I remember as a kid, down at my granny's, and I've told Scott this, we laughed about it now that I'm older and all, but I mean, me and my cousins, we'd cry. We get so scared because it would slap on the house. You could hear it breathing, and you'd have to go to the bathroom. And God, that was always the worst time because you didn't want to go to the bathroom because the bathroom was at the back of the house. It was in the corner. It was dark, it was like, oh God, will you sit in the kitchen and wait for me? So we would like sneak back there to try not to make the floor squeak. And then one night I was going back there and I got almost to the door of the bathroom, which was by the back door, and it started rattling the doorknob like it was trying to come in. And I remember I just turned and I ran. And whenever I ran, my cousin jumped up from the table. He was going to run and follow me, and he got his legs tangled up in the chair and fell. Yeah, it was. We got scared quite a bit down there. I mean, I don't know, when you walk past, and I wasn't just scared of like it getting me, I didn't want to see it, I was afraid of seeing it. I was like, what if that door opens, what is it going to look like? What am I going to see? That was kind of my fear too, was seeing it.
Bigfoot, not so bad. Dog man, yeah, that would scare me.
Yeah.
I think we had both. I really do.
What you described, probably.
Yeah, because I mean, the guy I told you, tried to be the tough guy that ran around the side of the house that finally wrote me the letter to tell me what he saw. What he described was a werewolf. I mean, he said it had a snout, but it spoke to him. So I thought that was really weird.
Yeah.
But we heard it speak down there before. We never heard a sentence. It never would say a sentence. Like, it would never say anything in a sentence, but it would say, mostly it would say names. Like, I was laying in the bed my mom used to sleep in, and it said her name through the water cooler. I heard it do that. It stood on the front sidewalk, and my granny had the front door open because back then she didn't have an air conditioner, so it was open the windows and turn the fans on. And it was standing on the sidewalk, and it was calling her name, which her name was Helen, and it would do like that animal noise kind of speak. It was like Helen, and it would stand out there on the sidewalk, and it would take its hand and it would do this, like, come here. And it was doing it was doing that to her one night. And I remember it really scared her. And she called her, her son, which lived up the road, and he would come down there. But it would call names, and it didn't do it all the time. But it was just on a few occasions it would call like my granny's name. It called my mom's name. There's a weird story, and I'll see if you've heard anything, Amanda, that goes along with this. I've heard a lot of people talking about their dogs, how their dogs will react to Sasquatch. My mom and them had a little bitty dog, and it was kind of like that little yapper we got. It was just a little dog, and it was most of their dogs at their house, like their outside dogs, they were farmers, so they had German shepherds and shepherds outside. And whenever this thing would come up, and Mom said it was about 8:30 every night, you could almost set your watch by it. It would be there at 8:30. And whenever it would start coming up, the dogs would go to the porch. They would bark, but they wouldn't go out there to it. They would bark at it, but they would not, go out there like they would anything else. Well, the little dog inside, it would go to the door and want out. And so they would let the little dog out to go to the bathroom or whatever, and then later the little dog would come back. Well, one night it was storming. Had a really bad storm, Mom said, and she said it was just pouring. And that little dog, she said, was just begging to go outside. And another weird thing, they said the harder it stormed, the worse the night would be. If it was a heavy rain night, heavy storms, it would be worse that night. So this little dog, they said, was really wanting out, wanting out, wanting out, wanting out. So finally, Grandpa's like, let the dog out. So they let the dog out. Like 30 minutes later, little dog comes scratching at the door, or they think it's the little dog scratching at the door. And they let the little dog in. And whenever the little dog comes in, the dog is as dry as it can be. But it looked like something had tried to breed the little dog. But that little dog, they said, every time this thing would come to the house, that little dog would want to go out with it. It would just have a fit to go outside to be with whatever it was.
So you said that it looked like something had tried to breed with it. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay. And so this being back in those days, I'm assuming that the dog wasn't spayed or neutered?
No.
No? Okay. So it could have been in heat.
Right.
And I thought that was really, weird that the dog wanted to go outside, to be with this thing. But the big dogs were, they were terrified of it. But the little dog, it wanted to go out there, and I guess whatever it was, I guess it would, maybe if the little dog was dry, maybe it was taking it out to the chicken house with it, or maybe it was taking it to the barn or something like that, because they had a barn and they had the chicken house, and we had an old well, because back then they would pump the water from the well. They had a well on the back, and they did see it at the well a lot. Grandpa would see it at the well, and I always wondered, was it going to the well to get water? Had it maybe figured out how to get water? But we always speculated on a lot of things because it stole food one time. It was funny because it did steal food. They were out at the barn milking the cow one day, and Granny looked up at the house, and they had left the back door open in the summer, and they had the big screen doors, the old wooden screen doors, and you could see through the house because the doors lined up, the front and back door, and they'd have them open to keep it cool. And Granny had looked up at the house from the barn, and she said, something's in our house. That she could see it moving inside the house. So whenever they ran up to the house, whatever it was, it went outside, but they had bologna, and they would buy the logs of bologna, and something had tore like part of the bologna off, but it didn't take the whole log. It just like took the end of it.
Well, did it look like something had just bit it off or broken it off or anything? Did they give any kind of short details on that? Remember?
She said it looked like it was tore off, like it had grabbed it and ripped it off, and I guess it could have bit it off, maybe. Man, that would be a big mouth.
Yeah.
Go with the big feet.
Yeah,
exactly.
Better to eat you with, my dear. Yeah. We was always, terrified. And then I have a question for you, Amanda. There was a lady sent in a question. She said she wanted to ask you last time, and she didn't. Her question wasn't seen, so I told her I would ask you. Do you believe that children are safe around Sasquatch?
I would love to be able to say yes, but I also cannot say no. Because I believe that these things have a deep fascination with children in the same way that you and I would have a very deep fascination with an adorable little kitten or an adorable little puppy that we would see, like, if you're going through the mall and you're at the pet shop and you see, oh my God, look at the cute little babies. You just want to look in the window and look at them. But I've heard so many stories of these things being, very good, very gentle, very helping with children, helping them in times of distress, like if they're lost in the woods, things like that. But then unfortunately, I've also heard the opposite of, them literally coming in the window and scooping up an infant out of the crib and, stuff like that. And in the book that I'm reading currently, there's several descriptions of these things, attacking children or things. And I believe it's in the same way as it would be any other, human being. It just depends on intent. If you have a good-hearted, good, Samaritan person, seeing a child in distress you would go and help it, or if you're a bad guy, as I would say to the little kids, bad things might happen. So I kind of think it's just in their intent, because like I said, they're intelligent. I don't know. I don't want to say they have a soul, but they might.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not creator here, but
I'm
I think it's definitely based on their intent. So like I wish I had a more positive answer, but that's just the truth of it. I'd rather share the truth than cuddle it.
I'm a Nephilim theorist. I think that they come from the Nephilim. I think that they probably I think that there's a possibility, and I think they may, some of them maybe want to be redeemable and they want to do the right thing. And then you have some of them, it's just like, we don't have a chance anyway. So, what's it matter? Right. This guy's out here and he's by himself, and he's drinking and he's standing on the bridge. So let's just shove him off and drown him, and then the people's going to say that he drowned, because we had two little boys that lost their life down here on the lake that I live on. And whenever they were found, they were found, actually, they was with their dads and they were out fishing. The boat that they were in the lake that I live in, has a lot of trees out in the middle of it, like a lot of stumps and trees and stuff, because it used to be a town and they flooded it. Well, they were out there. They wasn't from around here, and our lake, a lot of our lake is not real deep. It's a shallow lake. I mean, we have a deeper end, but on my end, it's more like 6-8 foot, about average. And then you'll have your like creek channels and stuff. Well,
yeah, it's about the same here with most of the lakes here.
They flipped their boat and they got lost. They didn't know where they were at. So they had a big search and rescue. And of course, me and my cousin, we went down and helped because we grew up here and we knew the woods. And so what they decided to do is they built bonfires along the lake, the fire department, hoping that they would see the fire, the people, and then come to the fire. They did end up rescuing the 2 adults. Now, the 2 children, they found them later. And the weird thing was, there was 2 weird things. I didn't find them. My buddy found them. The 2 weird things was, when they found them, the dog that they were using actually is what hit on them. And their life jackets were removed. They were both wearing life jackets. And they were, I think they said 50 yards from the water line from the lake. They were 50 yards up into the trees. And they were underneath a log, like a big tree that had fell. They were underneath it, and they had leaves and sticks over them. They were covered. And the highway patrol said that was they felt suspicious, but they didn't ever do anything further about it. They just put it was suspicious at how they were located, and they seemed to be, I think they said tucked away was the word they used. So I thought, if something like that were to find 2 kids, did it, you always have, I wondered, did it hurt the kids, or was they already gone when it found them? Did they, drown, succumb to the water? Because even with a life jacket on, a kid, they may float face down or whatever. Yeah. But I always wondered, because 50 yards from the water line, somehow they got up there and something covered them up.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. My gut wants to just tell me that on the if it was a Bigfoot cryptid creature, that just retelling the story, my gut goes with that it found them and was showing them respect and covering them up. Oh, that's just what my gut goes with. So,
and that may be why we don't find any of them. They bury each other or take care of each other. Because a lot of people say, well, you ain't never, because that's what I get hit with a lot of times when I tell them I believe in them, I've seen them. Well, there ain't no bodies ever been found, but I deer hunt a lot, and whenever I go deer hunting, I hardly ever see a dead deer in the woods or a dead pig. I mean, it ain't like you run across them either. So I mean,
and even if you do, if you go out a week later, it's going to be gone by then anyway. Nature takes care of itself. You know, you have scavengers who'll come and take care of the carcass part, and then you have rodents and beaver and squirrel and everything else like that that'll come and literally will chew the bone for the calcium and everything. And then not to mention that, you know, you have the acidity of the soil depending on where it's at. You know, sometimes it'll preserve a skull pretty good, or, you know, bones, well, if it's really dry. You know, you might find a partial here or there, like, you know, I don't know if you've ever been, like, you know, going out in the woods. Oh, look, I found a skull. You know, me and my brothers always found weird things in the woods, you know, or a bone or anything. But not, like you said, an entire body.
right.
It's very, very rare. And I was actually watching something on cryptids earlier today. I've been off work today, and I was at the house and had stuff on background noise, and they actually were talking about that as one of the things that people always pull up when they try to debunk this as a thing. So like, well, where's the bodies? Where are the bones? And that was actually what they talked about, was that, you know, even in the fossil record of it, for ones we have now, bears, cougars, other big mammals and prey that are in our forest, you know, even the fossil record for them as of right now is still very, very small. So, you know, it would be the same thing for these things if we found them. Not to mention, you know, if you go into the whole Nephilim thing and the giants thing, you know, how many mounds have we got here in the United States alone? I'll just pull it up here. Sorry for the audio listeners, but I have an entire book here about nothing but giants that have been unearthed and buried here and found here in the United States alone. So, I mean, what would those be a part of?
Right.
I just found out recently. I'm glad you brought that up again. I was investigating the thing that happened here in Oklahoma, and I found out, I never knew this either. Oklahoma actually has mounds in Oklahoma, and they had a Mothman sighting in the 70s.
Okay,
so
cool.
I thought that,
I knew about the Mothman sighting. Yeah, I knew about the mounds.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, oh, I didn't know Mothman was in Oklahoma, but I guess we got a lot of weird people down here, kind of like they do in Kentucky. So I guess there's a lot of different things.
Yeah, we've actually taken a Mothman report at the museum for here in Georgia before. So, you know, I think that Mothman, as it's coined nowadays, just like the term Bigfoot is coined, was because of the obvious thing there in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in the 60s. I think that there's been lots of reports of winged humanoid, dark, you know, malevolent winged humanoid beings throughout American history, and that, you know, that, like, people don't necessarily attribute it to Mothman, because the guy who was sharing the encounter, it was a secondhand one. He didn't call it Mothman. He called it a demon, but everything that he described to it to a T was Mothman.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we've had experiences and encounters up here too in Wisconsin, and between Illinois and Wisconsin, that have, very similar to what you would think of as demon like. Yeah, not.
Yeah, there's a really good book that came out about the they call it flaps, the flap of Mothman sightings there around the Great Lakes. It's actually called, I want to think it's actually called the Great Lakes Mothman or something. Anyway, I will find the name of it, Jess, and get it to you.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
And recently on Netflix, in their Unsolved Mysteries, they had a recent episode in the newest season about the Mothman sightings there in Wisconsin and Chicago.
Oh, okay. I don't watch television much anymore, so I'm gonna miss that. But I'll definitely have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely interesting when you start looking into it, for sure. When I hear people describing them, there was on several podcasts that I've listened to in the past, There was one, and I want to say it was either here in the United States or it was in Britain, but they described what they called the Owl Man or the Owl People or anything like that. And the way they were describing it, I was like, oh my God, that sounds exactly like some of the Mothman reports. So again, I go to think, just like we have Sasquatch, Bigfoot, boogers, skunk ape, all these different names trying to describe this one creature, we have all these kind of different little names that would be describing what we now call Mothman.
Right.
Yeah. So where was the Mothman sighting at that was in Georgia?
It was up here in North Georgia. I don't think I can give the exact location of it, but it was actually really, really neat. It was me and David Becerra, the owner of the museum. This is back in 2019, and it was just him and I was working the museum. And actually, it was a priest who had come in, and him and his son came in and toured the museum. And afterwards, they stood there at the counter for a while and talked to us for quite some time and shared some really interesting stories. And even the personal experience that the priest himself had before he took on, his priesthood. And, he had an encounter with footprints and Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest in the 50s. Oh, my chair just rolled. And he has also had a UFO experience, him and his son. But then he said that since now he's able to speak about it, that he took a confession from a gentleman who saw exactly what he described in all the Mothman stuff. They were driving here on Highway 515, 575 here in North Georgia, which is our main 4-lane highway that comes off of the interstate. And it was flying on the passenger side of the car at night. He keeps seeing something moving over there, and he's driving and he's looking, and there's this winged humanoid with red glowing eyes following him in his car. And so he actually came to him and was like, hey, what did I see? Was it a demon or what? And it was like, it sounded, everything in his description that he described of it was Mothman.
Yeah.
So, and then I want to say there was another one that was also in the same general area, but it was just one, they kind of saw it flying out in the distance kind of thing. It wasn't, anything where it was like right beside them like that one was. But I know that there's been at least 2 reports that I know of in that general area here in North Georgia that we've taken at the museum alone. So that's pretty fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it makes you wonder too sometimes is when these children, they're there one minute and then they're gone. Makes you wonder, like, if some of these things fly, are they grabbing them and flying away with them? Because we found one time, at Granny's, we were just kids, when we were staying there, and it had snowed, and whatever it was at the house again. And when we went outside, Granny was like, look, there's footprints. And of course we thought that was cool, and we followed them. And Granny lived on a farm. There was no trees, except for the fence rows, but it wasn't like no woods unless you went way behind the house and it turned into the woods. But they went toward the woods, and we was following them, and we thought, well, they're going to go into the woods, So we was following them as kids, and when we got out there to the middle of the pasture, they just stopped, and there was nowhere else it could have went without leaving a print, unless it would have, backstepped. Grandpa, there was the Indian, he showed us how to backstep when we were kids, how to hide and how to throw people off your trail. And he always played with us like that, and he would teach us that. But Grandpa said that they didn't do that because he had looked at the footsteps, and he said, you can tell if you know what you're looking for if somebody done that. And I asked Granny, I was like, so where did it go? And they looked at me just like, like no big deal. They just like, well, some of these things, they fly. And I was like, they fly? And Grandpa was like, how do you think they get on top of the house? Like, duh.
Right. Yeah, Squatch and Holler just brought up a really good point, and I was actually going to bring that up as well. There was a report of what was called a thunderbird that literally picked up a kid in the front yard, and the mom screamed and hollered to try to stop it, and it ended up dropping it. So yeah, there's actually a report of a child being taken up by a winged cryptid. And it was interesting too, the same priest that I was just talking about who was recounting the Mothman confession that he took from a gentleman, his personal experience with Bigfoot, like I said, was in the 50s. In the PNW, he was hunting or working up there or something to that effect. But anyway, it was the classic, they saw a long row of massive footprints, massive stride between them and everything. So they followed it for a very long time until it literally just stopped. And it wasn't like, at the edge of the trees, like where, the ground would have changed or anything like that to where it would distort the print. It was in the mud. So it was very obvious. And so that was one of the things that made him know that, there was definitely more to than just flesh and blood to these things.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was in the 1950s, which was long before, Bigfoot was really common. Well, especially the paranormal stuff.
Right.
Have you all heard of the story? And I cannot find it again. Amanda, you may know. I watched a show on TV. It's been a while. And it was about a lady and her boyfriend had went up on like a hike. And the Thunderbird had flew over the boyfriend or something. He had seen it fly like in the clouds or something. And whenever his girlfriend was supposed to come back down and meet him, she never came back down, and he went up and couldn't find her. And then they done like an investigation. I think they brought a team in, and they were looking at like the radar the day that she went missing, and they found like waves in the clouds that would represent almost like the flapping of wings, because they said the clouds. I remember they went all into that, and I cannot find that anymore. I looked and looked and looked for that.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that. The only thing on Thunderbirds, besides a couple of YouTube videos I might have watched about it, was the Thunderbird documentary by Small Town Monsters, which is actually where I learned about the one that Squatch and Holler brought up in the comments about the little boy that was picked up by a Thunderbird. So that's the only one I could think of. And it was about it. It's a full-length documentary, so it might have been brought up in that. I'm not sure.
I'll see if I can find that, and then I'll send it to you, the link, because it really interested me, because in my family, we have a lot of Native American Cherokees, and Thunderbird was a big topic that they would talk about. And I'll tell you, we had something weird happen one night, and I'm not saying that it was supernatural. I'm just saying that it was weird. I was staying with a friend, and I was a kid, and outside his door, there was a hoot owl. And that hoot owls are not real popular around the native people. And we were sitting inside, and this hoot owl starts hooting outside. And he's like, "Oh no, that's bad. That's bad." And he gets up, and he's like grabbing his rifle and putting his boots on. And I'm like, "What is it?" He goes, If we leave it out there, that means there's going to be a death in the family. We have to get rid of this hoot owl." And I was like, okay. So I go outside with him, and he's carrying this big old light, and he's got his 22, and it's just right outside the house in a big pecan tree in the yard. And he kept his yard mowed really nice and everything. And up in the tree was a white hoot owl. And he's like, there it is. And he shot it. And whenever he shot it, it fell out of the pecan tree. It fell backwards, and we heard it hit the ground. Just boom. And he's like, "Okay, we got it." So we walked over there, and he's like, "You want a feather?" And we walked, and when we walked around the side of the tree, there was no hoot owl. And we looked everywhere, and that hoot owl was gone. But I mean, his whole yard was like, he kept his yard immaculate, mowed. There was no hoot owl anywhere, and we heard it hit the ground. And I was like, "Where did it go?" And he just looked at me. He's like, "That wasn't a regular hoot owl."
Especially with it being white too. That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird. It was scary to me because the way, because being a kid, when somebody looks at you and they're like, that wasn't a regular hoot owl, you're like, God, I'm staying all night here, I'm staying with this guy.
And that's a terrifying thing.
What was it? Kind of like the Grinch. What is it? But yeah, I don't know. I always thought about that. I always wondered where did that hoot owl go? And then as I grew older, talking to my granny about it, I forget what they called them. They had a name for them. One of the names that I would hear a lot was skilly. They would talk a lot about the skilly, which best I understand it, it's a demon. They would always say, you got to watch out for the skilly. A lot of Indian beliefs where I live. There's a lot of Indian money. A lot of people find a lot of old Indian money, but the Indians around here will tell you, like, you don't touch that money if you find it. You have to take it to a fresh spring that's running, and then you have to leave it in the spring overnight to clean the money, because if you don't, then you can bring something home with you. So they have a lot of beliefs.
Oh yeah, definitely.
On your TikTok video, I seen you was asked a question where somebody asked you, how many Sasquatch would there be in the United States?
Oh yeah.
I thought that was it.
Yeah, that's a question we get quite often there at the museum. And again, going on the great ape theory, like I said, I'm open to both camps. So I try to find the common term, in between, so I can present the information for both. So anyway, going off of the great ape theory or flesh and blood theory, to have a sustainable breeding population of these things, you have to have at least a minimum of 5,000 in North America, just by as far as acreage, mileage, whatever that is concerned, for the total surface area of the United States, which also would kind of correlate into the amount of reports of sightings that come along. Thanks, Squatchin. That come along with reports every year. Those numbers kind of correlate. But then I think how I ended that TikTok video said, if they're interdimensional, spiritual, if they're from other worlds, other realms, there can be however many of them there wants to be.
Right.
I have a crazy theory.
All right.
You know that they say in the book of Enoch that there was 200 watchers.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it interesting whenever I was looking into some things that we have approximately 200 named impact crater sites on Earth. And I was thinking, I was wondering, because they had fallen, and God spoke about Satan. He saw him fall as a bolt of lightning or whatever. I was wondering, I wonder if 200 and 200, because I used to have the theory that because a lot of people, and this is just what I think, they didn't even know what rain from the sky was back then. And I was, I used to think that maybe those craters were part of the geysers opening up, for the flood. And then I was reading about it, and it was like 200. I was like, where have I heard 200 at before? And I got to thinking, I was like, that's kind of weird. But then I get in trouble sometimes because depending on the preacher, some preachers will tell you, the book of Enoch is good knowledge. And then I've had other preachers tell me, like, you shouldn't read that because it's not factual, it's not inspired, But I think there's a little bit of truth in everything. I mean, there's got to be some truth there, I would think.
I think so myself. And I'm like you. I've heard both as referring to the Book of Enoch or the Book of Watchers and Jasher and all the other apocryphal texts. But I stand with the Book of Enoch because it is mentioned that Enoch was he's one of Noah's ancestors, and it says in there, Enoch walked with God, and so that's what he's doing in that book. God is showing him all of this history of this stuff, of the Watchers and the fallen angels and the Nephilim and all those kinds of things. And then I believe it is in the New Testament as well, want to say Jude, but I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I need to get into that a little bit more myself. That yeah, it's the Book of Enoch is referenced a couple of times in the Bible.
He was
So
his
that's where I
grandfather.
stand on it.
Enoch was his grandfather.
Thank you. I thought it was his grandfather, but I'm like, wait, I know that there was another descendant or ancestor that was also Enoch. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm trying to make sure I keep my
Yeah.
my lines in line there. That was a rabbit hole I went down probably 2 or 3 years ago. I really got into that a lot with the Nephilim and stuff, and then I had the great privilege of going to the Noah's Ark exhibit thing there in Kentucky. And if y'all have never been, that's somewhere that you need to go. That was awesome.
I swear, it's amazing.
And
I've
hearing
been
good
to it.
things.
Yeah. Me and my best friend, we went and took the pilgrimage up there, and we went to the Creation Museum first, and then we went to the Ark the second day. Me and her both were just like, I feel like we've been to church the last 2 days. So it was good.
Yeah, when they drive you up in the bus to see that ark for the first time, it just blows your mind how big it is. I mean, it's supposed to be exactly what the Bible dimensions were. So
it does, yeah.
And the way they feed the animals, kept the food, how they got rid of the waste, everything. I mean, it explains it all.
It does, and it doesn't shy away either from, like, the fountains of the deep bursted up.
Right.
And help flood it. Where it wasn't just from rain, it was also from below that caused everything to
exactly. Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot of like cryptid stuff in there. I think I even found a sign or something about aliens. I can't remember if that was in the Creation Museum or there. And we both got my friend both kind of looking at it. We was hoping there was more blurry stuff around there, but there wasn't.
Were you
start somewhere.
Were you shocked to see dinosaurs in all the cages rather than what we know as animals today?
No, not at all, actually. That didn't surprise me a bit. Only because I knew to look for it. My mom had been there several years before, and she was telling me about it, how they presented it as God had brought every species to its kind, not by its individuals. So, and then it explained how from there everything branched off into its different breeds.
Well, yeah, what we have today. It's it tells you what animal it turned into. That's what I was telling Jesse. The elephant one had a trunk, but it was nothing like an elephant that we know. But they said this later on became the elephant.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is very interesting.
Have to get Mike and Jesse to go there one day.
Yeah.
Someday.
I'll have to. That would be. That thing is just amazing to me how, back then to build something that big with that much weight, and this the weather outside, it wasn't like a calm sea, and that, and then, I mean, you can think deep about it and just give you goosebumps just wondering, what was on the outside watching you while you're inside of there, I mean, they were protected by God, but there was things outside that saw you in that ship that was like,
oh yeah,
angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Says they were there before and after the flood, so
yep,
they had to hang on to something.
I seen another thing you did on. I went through your TikToks. I watched a lot of your TikToks.
That's all right. That's what they're there for.
I noticed that you were talking, and it's sad to me, but I understand that it happens. You were talking about the Sierra Sounds, and you was addressing, that people were saying that they admitted that they were fake, and nobody's ever said that. I looked too.
That's where I'm saying. I'm like, if somebody can show me, where they admitted it was fake, okay, cool. That's good. I know, but until you can present said information to me, I'm just going to go with what information I do have, which is that it's what Ron and Al said that they recorded. And, it's what's been studied by several universities, by Scott Nelson, who is the guy who's coined that it is a language because he is a cryptolinguist with the United States military formerly, so I think he should know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I've always heard that they had analyzed it and it was beyond human sound.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. Whatever decibel it goes up to or whatever is beyond what human range can do.
And it was a living or some kind of creature, not a sound made up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I believe they're real.
And interesting, too, because it was recorded in the 70s, so it was analog.
Right.
So you had, the left and right and everything. So it was easy to determine that, there was more than one because you had sound coming from this side. You had sound coming from this side on top of, them commenting back to the creatures as they're talking. So, you can analyze all of that.
Yeah. It even sounds like they're arguing between each other.
It does. When I listen to it, it sounds like they're arguing with each other.
Shut up. They got some kind of device.
Wait, something's different tonight than it normally is. What's going on? I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I'm hungry. That soup smells good. Yeah, I want some.
Oh, Lord.
Why are these people out here yelling at us? I was talking the other night about, on the Lewis and Clark expedition, whenever they ran across the new Indians, whenever they went out, and they had the idea that they were going to use the Indian language they knew with the new Indians. And while they're running up to them, they're actually yelling at them. They're yelling, stranger, stranger, stranger. And the Indians were like, why are these guys yelling stranger running at us? I mean, they almost killed all of them because they didn't understand, why are these people we've never seen before running at us yelling stranger? And then it makes me wonder, when we go out in the woods and we mimic these things, what if the things that we're hearing at the time are like an argument and we're actually out there calling them something they don't want to be called, or, we're being very disrespectful to them. And they're like, why are you coming down here doing that to me? I haven't done nothing to you. I wasn't bothering you, and then you're following them and you're shining lights on them. And I could see why they would get irritated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually saw a really funny, like comic cartoon kind of thing like that. It was of a Bigfoot with his hands over his ears like this, and he's got some people over here like, hit that tree again, Leroy. I think I heard something. He got the camera crew over here like finding Bigfoot style with the cameras off their heads and stuff. So I think he's like, can we just get these idiots to please shut up? So yeah, I 100% believe that.
There was a lady asked a question. She said, do you think Bigfoot knows the difference between somebody that's in the woods not looking for them and then somebody that's in the woods, looking for them? And I told her, I think that if I was Bigfoot and I put myself in their situation, they're at home. We go to their home when we go to the woods. And I think they understand if you show up and you're fishing and you light a lantern, and you're sitting down there and you're having a snack or something and you're fishing, they're like, oh, okay. They're curious. I'm sure they're going to come around and see what you're doing, or are they going to leave some food or something? And then the people that hunt them, I think they can see the IR light and stuff. So they're like, okay, this isn't normal. They're mimicking the things that we do. They're calling us, they're spotlighting, I think they can tell. I think they know.
Oh, yeah.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
I definitely think that they can tell intent.
And I think they get angry. I don't think that they like to be. And I think sometimes they're more like, okay, we'll put up with them tonight. And then you show up the next night and the next night and the next night. And they're like, okay, come on, guys. Maybe we're going to have to eat one of them to get them
to start with, but now it's annoying. Please stop.
Yeah. And I've heard stories of people, they say that if you've ever shot at them or you've ever hurt one of them, you're going to be more susceptible to them being, angry with, like, they don't forget who you are.
Right.
And
I agree.
I think about that. I do, because when I'm out, I investigate a lot, and a lot of sometimes on my own, and I get busted in the face with a branch sometimes, but I went out and I don't know if I told you about that. I got smashed in the face with a branch on one of my lives I was doing. something was following me. I don't know what it was, but I could hear it in the taller grass, and I was in the middle of nowhere, and I kept kind of maybe taunting it because I could hear it, and you couldn't see it, but I could hear it, and I was on a live, and I turn around and I'm like, I can see you. You're not hiding very well. And I kept like telling it that, and it kept getting kind of louder and louder and louder, like it was getting maybe angry or it didn't care that I heard it. And I got closer to the tree line because I was in the open walking parallel to like a marsh. It was following me in the marsh. I got closer to the tree line and I threatened to cut a switch and spank it. And it wasn't long after that. Just this limb comes from around the tree, hit me right in the face. It knocked the light off my head. It knocked the camera out of my hand. It cut my arm. I had blood dripping off my arm. And I heard it run away, and I was like, "Wow, I guess I may have either frustrated it or aggravated it, but it hit me hard enough it knocked my gear off."
Dang.
Yeah, need to find out what live that was on because you can post that so people can get to it real easy. Because that was crazy.
I think Scott was watching that night.
Oh, I was. I mean, after it smacked him and you heard him taunting it, you couldn't help but laugh. I mean, I knew he wasn't hurt too bad, but I was rolling.
Yeah, it was weird. I've never had it even ever do anything like that. But
no,
it was following me. It followed me the whole time. You could hear it following me. Wherever I would go, you could hear whatever this was. It was following me. And kind of, you felt like you were being stalked.
Yeah, and they always sideline everybody. Almost everybody talks about them being on the side of them, and they can hear them walking. But when they shine their light, they don't get no eye shine. But yeah,
I hear that all the time with the witnesses at the museum as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know until Amanda said, they didn't even really use the Bigfoot until 1958. Is that when you said they really started using it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and 1958 was when the term was coined, and that was from the Jerry Crew incident in Bluff Creek, California. In the newspaper article there, they coined the term Bigfoot through it. And I'm still researching the history on that. So I don't know if the loggers up there had nicknamed it Bigfoot, was coming around camp, or if the actual journalist coined the term. So other people out there will probably know, but I personally am still studying that. But anyway, that's exactly where it came from. And because that news article blew up, it got taken over from the local journalist, local paper, to the Associated Press, which is a national thing, and it's still today. It ended up becoming national news, and it kind of went from there. And like I said, just like the term Mothman was coined by a newspaper article, so was Bigfoot. And like I said, that's where it stuck. Yeah,
when Jerry cast those footprints and held them up to show the photographer or the news channel.
Yeah, it's a classic picture of him holding it up.
Yes, and they are big. I mean, they are massive.
They are massive. They really are.
And isn't that what got Patterson going after him?
Yeah, that's what got Patterson to want to really start investigating that area, which then got Gimlin involved, and that's how all of that just kind of snowball affected into all of that happening.
Yeah, I believe Patty film is as true as it can get.
100%, yes.
Yeah, they couldn't even. I mean, they even talked to the guy that was doing the artwork on the Planet of the Apes. He said there is no way anybody could come up with a suit like that back in that day. He said, "Look at Planet of the Apes. How simple they were. You knew they were fake." He said that. He said they could not. They didn't even have the material to make that the way it looked. And to make the muscles flex, yeah, that's what got me.
I bring up with skeptics all the time when people are asking me about it. I'm talking to them is people don't realize that in that film, Patty, they named it, is a female. Whenever it
Right.
turns and it looks at the camera, it's very obviously has breasts.
Yes.
And so why would two cowboys have any right or want to make a very obviously female
Right.
suit for them? You know, they'd be like, I hope there's not kids. I don't want to put the boobs on. You put them on. I ain't gonna put them on. That's just what I see. Being around so many macho men here in the South and then living in the Dakotas around cowboys for as long as I did, I just don't see that being a thing. Like, why would they fake a female of all things?
Patty is not
I agree
flattered.
with you.
Yeah.
But you know, when I watch it, I don't look at the footsteps and the muscles and that. If you look where her arms are swinging, the hair is literally wore off where her arms hit the side of the body.
Yep.
You can see that it's almost white compared.
Yeah.
It's real thin of hair right there, and that's what would happen with something moving constantly like that with their arms swinging.
Yes.
You know, yeah. That film is just awesome. I watch it every chance I get. It's just amazing. And they said somebody went through it with the technology we have today and said there was 2 or 3 of them up in the woods.
There's theories of that. I still don't know about it myself.
I don't either.
To look into it, but yeah, there's been several people who have gone through it. Most notably is a gentleman who goes by MK Davis.
Oh yeah.
On YouTube, and he's taken it in by 4K frame by frame by frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was him or someone else, but anyway, he was able to get the original footage, like the original reel from Mrs. Patterson. So it wasn't, a blurry copy of a VHS tape or whatever, it was the original. So it was the highest quality of film. So he was able to literally take photo of each individual frame.
Yeah.
And so which then of course becomes moving film. So anyway, that's where it's the highest, and it's 4K quality now. And whenever you take it frame by frame, you can even see, like I said, obviously the muscle movement that everybody talks about.
Oh man. Yeah.
She turns, there's the undulation of her body and breast. You can see the mid-tarsal break in the foot whenever she's walking. It's like you said, it's the gold standard. It's going to be very hard to beat that still to this day. Because anything today nowadays people would claim would be photoshopped in AI anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I think it was MK Davis that did the breakdown and said, look up in the woods here, you can see another figure watching. And they said that Patty drew them away from those. That's why she walked so far off and then turned into the woods to keep them from going up and seeing the rest, which could have been juveniles or anything.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that theory as well.
Yeah.
That's why she keeps looking back at them as she's walking in that direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It was a good film. That's what got me interested in it.
That was another thing that really surprised us too at Granny's was we had a lot of animals down there. So we had like hog wire, for instance, at the back of the house, the yard was fenced in with hog wire, which was 4 foot. And then at the top of the hog wire, Grandpa had 2 strands of barbed wire above that. So, I mean, it was almost 5 foot. And then once you went over that, you had the field, which was 7 strands of barbed wire where the cows were at. Whatever this was, whenever the adults back then would go outside when this was happening, this thing would run full blast in the pitch black, not using a light, and just go over the fences like a deer. They said it was so big, but the way that it moved was so graceful. It would just just go over the fences and it was gone. And it was raining one night.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it was raining one night, and they ended up getting a 19-inch footprint in the mud.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. It's almost like they say it's almost like it was gliding across, like it's almost like it wasn't even touching the ground, like it was do you remember Jess might being us girls in Twilight, the movie, in the first movie, when the vampires are walking and they're kind of moving faster even though they aren't walking in speed, like whenever you're at the airport and you're walking on those movable tracks, even though you're walking speed you're walking faster. I hear that from people all the time. That it's just that it was walking, but it's almost like it was gliding.
Right. Yeah.
So this definitely goes into more some. Could that be part of the paranormal aspects of it? I don't know. Could it just be the way that their muscle development and mobility is different than ours? I don't know. So,
well, I have heard some theories about because of the way their leg structures are, and that the upper portion of their legs are longer than the bottom portion from the knees down, and that has something to do with why it looks like they float. And
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And they also walk in a straight line as well,
Yep.
almost like we would if we were going to walk the line, foot in front of foot instead of side by side. Yeah, they walk in almost a straight line when they walk. The way that movement of the hip and legging works. So, and that's one of the things that people describe in the Patty film as well, that that this isn't a fake. It's because humans can't walk like that. We can try, we can imitate it, but we can't do it just right like they do.
Right.
I'm glad you all said that, because you talk about the paranormal side of it. At Granny's, there was a paranormal side of it. There was and this happened in daylight. There was what my uncle and Granny and everybody described as it happened on just a few occasions. There was a man. They said it looked like a man. He was bald-headed. He was wearing a white T-shirt. Every time that they would see him, he was always in like a white T-shirt. And you could only see like down to his waist because the grass was high in the field. So it looked like, a man standing out in the field in the grass, and you could only see like his waist up. But it would move across the pasture, and they said it was like he was gliding. And one day when my uncle had got back from Vietnam, he was having a lot of trouble because he had been to Vietnam. He was, they thought KIA, and then he was MIA for a while, and he got shot up pretty bad. And whenever he got back, he was just to the point to where it was scaring his mom. It was scaring his brothers and sisters, and I'm not putting up with it. So he had brought his rifle back from Vietnam, and he said, I'll take care of this. So he went out there, and he shot at this man, or whatever it was, going across the pasture with a 30-06. And he said, there's no way I missed it, because it was only like 50, 60 yards out in the pasture. It ain't like it was way out there. And he said it was like it was unfazed. Like whenever you would shoot, it wouldn't even look. It would just like it was doing its own thing. And later that day, the dog comes running up in the yard. And this is the larger dogs that were outside, and it's carrying something in its mouth. And they all used to sit underneath the shade trees a lot in the summer because they didn't have air conditioning. So the dog comes out of the pasture, the adjacent pasture, and he's carrying something in his mouth, and they can't really tell what it is. They think he's probably found, some roadkill or something. And he's like running up there with it, and he'll run a little ways and he'll drop it. And then he'll bite it and he'll pick it up, and he'll run a little ways and then he'll drop it. And then finally, whenever he gets up to the house, he drops it by the propane tank, and it caught on fire, and it burned up. Yeah, it burnt a whole big circle by the propane tank. Whatever it was actually caught on fire and burnt whatever he was carrying up to the house.
That's interesting.
It really bothered Granny. Grandpa, like I said, he wasn't around a lot. He was a logger, so he was in like New Mexico a lot. And he would come home like on the weekends, and he was skeptical for a while. He'd always say like, "Oh, you guys, and he would come home on the weekends, and like we would tell him, "Grandpa, there's something out there." He'd go, "Yeah, your imagination," and until one night, Grandpa got a taste of what was out there. He had forgot to feed the pigs, and it was later in the evening, and he decided, well, you got to go feed the pigs, So he always kept his hat hanging on a nail by the door. He wouldn't wear his hat in the house. So he goes out, grabs his hat, puts his hat on, goes out to feed the pigs. And he came in the house, and he was like real quiet, and he pours him some coffee, and he's like, I just saw something out there that shouldn't have been out there. And Granny was like, what did you see? He had a bunch of sows at the time that had babies, and he was feeding the sows, and they was in their little houses. And he said whenever he fed the last sow, which was on the very end of the property, like a row of kind of like housing, he said he fed the last one and he had heat lamps on them. He'd keep them warm. And he said whenever he poured the feed in there, something stood up that was laying with the little babies nursing off of the mama pig and ran off. And he said it looked like a pig, but it ran on two legs and it ran off toward the pond. And he told Granny, he said, don't go out there at night and feed those pigs. And he never would feed the pigs late anymore. He would always do it early. So something spooked him.
Yeah, that's definitely terrifying. I'm having like, my mind is making the picture because the way you were describing it is almost identical to my dad's hog pen.
I'm thinking of a creepy pig running around or something, you know?
Yeah. Instead of making a dog man, they made a pig man.
Yeah, pig man would be.
Randy says, "Where pig?"
Where pig? Man, bear, pig.
He said that it looked like a baby human, kind of, but like a disfigured human that had like pig hair all over it, like the coarse pig hair, and it ran on two legs. And we all knew that he saw something after that, because before that he'd laugh at you. He'd be like, "There ain't nothing out there, you know, you guys are," because he would get up, you know, because us kids would be scared, and he would always, you know, he didn't want us to be scared, so he would always go outside, you know, and check around the house, and we would always be like, "Grandpa, take your gun, take your gun." Well, back then we were little, and the gun Grandpa was taking was a single shot 22, you know, the one you had to put the bullet in and you pull the thing in. Right.
Just put him off.
Yeah, and he would grab it and take it with him, you know, because we would be scared if he didn't, because we wanted Grandpa to be safe, you know. And as long as Grandpa had his gun, you know, we thought as kids he was safe. And then later on, we found out whenever he would go outside, he actually didn't even have it loaded. He would just carry it for us, so we wasn't scared. And then, you know, yeah, he would come in and he would take the gun. I remember one night he came in and he put the gun up and he goes, "You don't have to worry, guys. I went out there and gave him what for," you know. And then he'd laugh and he'd go in there and lay down. But after that happened in the hog pen, he actually started carrying shotgun, and he had double lock buck in it, because he said, he would never say what it was, but he'd always say, "I don't know," you know, Grandpa sitting there with his coffee and his Camel, you know, he'd go, "I don't know what that damn thing was," you know, just serious, you know, he'd just say, "It's gone now. It's long gone now," you know. But he knew he saw something that wasn't supposed to be out there.
Yeah, goat man's bad enough. Good, well, a pig man.
Yeah, they eat bones and all.
Oh Lord, yeah, because pigs will eat a human being. If you die in a pig pen, you're gone. They won't eat nothing.
Grandpa used to carry a pitchfork to keep the pigs, you know, when they had babies, from eating him. He would carry the pitchfork.
Oh yeah.
Whenever the sows, you know, he would stab them in the ear, because he had some big old sows. And he came from Arkansas, I think. Where he came from. I think Grandpa was from Arkansas, so he was. And you know, we lived a life that most people don't live. I mean, we lived like in the country. You know, we lived off the farm. We grew the vegetables. They had the cows, the pigs. They milked and they butchered, and the chickens. And I mean, that's just because they had 8 kids. And Grandpa was like, "There's no way you can go to the store and buy enough food to feed all these kids all week." So they done a lot of hunting. You know, a lot of the meat was off the land, and it's just how they survived. It was, you know, the old ways. And a lot of people probably don't, you know, the old smokehouse. You got the meat hanging in the smokehouse, and that's just how they. They survived.
I remember
that's how they survived. Yeah,
and that might have been what brought some of that stuff up there too. You know, you have meat hanging out in a, you know, smokehouse.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, anything that scavenges or, you know, opportunistic is going to smell that hanging there and cooking and be like, "Oh yeah, that's the good stuff."
You smell bacon cooking, that'll draw you.
Yeah.
And then while you're at it,
eat it, I think it smells good.
Oh my gosh. I love bacon, but I don't eat that much.
just go out there and get you a little bit of milk too. It sounds like that's what that one was doing.
Oh yeah.
I think that they may even do that with cows. I think they're smart. I think that they, because a lot of we live in cattle country where I'm at, and like the rancher that has the land across from us, he just brought in 1,500 head. And, he's talked about when they go out there to feed, sometimes the cowboys will talk about something in the herd, got up and ran off into the woods, So I think they follow animals.
Yeah, I'd like to have a pet Thunderbird grab one of those cows and bring it over here. Thank you. Oh, man.
I just had this visual image of, like a falconer, but except it's a Bigfoot with a Thunderbird on his arm, sending it out to go hunt and come back. So I'm going to cut off I just saw that T-Carp, Travis just jumped on. I saw his little thing, and I just wanted to give a huge shout out and love to him in memory of his dad, Scott. He is a huge influence on me. I actually literally have his book sitting right here, or one of them, as I was going to use it as reference tonight if I needed to and anything brought up. So Travis, much love to you and your family. Scott really meant a lot to me. I only got to meet him once, but yeah, he's truly missed. Lots of love.
Yeah. Travis is an awesome guy too. We've had him on, and we actually just had him on, and we was talking about the awareness project.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We're gonna have to finish up. We didn't get it done. We was on about 3 hours. I didn't even know. I felt
not like us, huh?
I felt terrible. So, has anything at the museum, Amanda? Have you ever had like anything happen in the museum, like an attachment to anything, like something you may have in there that's caused something to happen in the museum that scared you, or like has it brought anything to the museum? Has there been like a hitchhiker kind of effect?
Yes and no. I don't know if there's anything in the museum itself that might have a hitchhiker effect. The building itself we don't really make it public knowledge, but I guess it'll be public now. The building is haunted. We have a resident ghost. And whenever I was there, and I would work there by myself sometimes, especially when I first started, it could get very creepy. You knew you wasn't alone. Like some of the toys would be moved, or something would turn. We have gremlins that turn things on and off. Could it be electrical stuff? Could it be our resident ghost? I don't know. But yeah, the building was several things. One being a couple of dance halls, a bar, a couple of things where unfortunately people did pass away there, on top of whatever property was there long before that particular building was set there as well. So yeah, I imagine there's stuff there. Not to mention, as most of us, I believe, in the crowd here, we all have, since we're all on board with a lot of the Nephilim stuff, we're all Christian. So not only is Bigfoot good with that, but it also does bring in some of the other crowd that will come and be visited. Some of the Satanists, the witchy people, things like that. But they come in and visit the museum all the time, and so maybe those people could bring something with them, and and leave it there, because you always have to have that the armor of God on throughout the day. But as far as like the museum itself goes, I don't know if any of the objects there have anything particular on them, but I'd like to say, I just think that the land there itself has something with it. Because sometimes it's there. All of us there have experienced something there. Either a voice, or hear something, or saw something moved, or even have somebody come through the door, sell them a ticket, go in through the museum, and then they never come out. Like, where did that go? There's literally nobody in the museum. Where did they go?
Oh, that would be creepy.
Oh, wow.
It is really creepy when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be my last day.
To me, it's chilled out in the last year. Whenever I was first there, it really could be super creepy. And probably about a year ago, it started to kick back up again. And we actually had they one of the laptops in there, like literally just completely fell off of its stand it would have to be picked up and moved and dropped off of its stand. And I just said, you know what? We're not dealing with this today. And I went in there with the authority and I cast it out and everything like that. And so, good Lord willing, that took care of it. But yeah, it's chilled out since then. So.
So I have to ask you, how many times do you have people that come into, out of curiosity, come in to check out the museum that blatantly skeptics and kind of walk out going,
all the time.
And then they change their mind afterwards, or?
I definitely think we plant a lot of seeds a lot of times. I mean, we still do have people who come in, like I said, they're just looking for a good time. They're totally skeptic, and they're, it's your money, you spend it how you want. If you just want to have a good time, that's on you. I'm totally open to that. It's keeping the bills paid. So
yeah.
Right.
but actually quite often I'll have, I'll chit chat with people, strike conversation when they come in. It's like, so how many believers are in the group? And they're like, I don't know about all this. And I always ask them if I'm there at the register when they leave. So what'd you think of the museum? What do you think? And they said, they usually give comments like, it's actually a lot more to it than I thought. Or, you can see the wheels turning in their head and stuff. And there's actually way more to this than I thought there was. And my personal favorite is I get all the time is like, wait, there's more than one?
No, there's one. He just flies around the United States, overseas.
Lord help you.
He's as fast as Flash. He can just get from one place to the next really quick.
There you go.
Right.
Bigfoot now superhero.
And I wonder what your theory is, Amanda. I have a theory, but some people say that somebody dies somewhere, something horrific happens somewhere, and then you have a haunting. They say, that person wasn't ready to leave, or that person's lost, or that person's here. I have a different approach. I don't believe that we come back. I believe that when we pass, we're gone. I believe that, to be absent from the bodies, to be present with the Lord. I don't believe we come back. That's my belief. That's my theory. Do you think that the approximate 25% of the paranormal they say we get when we have a cryptid encounter, do you believe it's because of the lineage between the things? And then like the hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, they have the Crescent Moon Hotel, and people go there and they experience things. But also what people aren't looking at is they set aside special days, like you said, for the Satanists that go in, and they use Ouija boards and they do their seances in there and things, and they try to communicate with these entities. I believe there's a connection between what I believe the cryptids to be the Nephilim and the demons. I believe that they're like a family and that you have that connection. But what do you think? Do you think that it's based on the people that's died there, or do you think it's familiar spirits? What do you think is causing it?
I think it could be a combination of both. I personally I'm like you. Like I said, once you're be absent, the body is to be in the presence of the Lord. But just from personal experience and from other people, I definitely do think that God can use people who have passed on and send them on a mission or something like that. Because like I said, I've personally seen my grandpa standing at the foot of the bed. My grandmother has seen her father, who was a preacher, on the video from somebody of him coming down in a hospital room and lifting the soul out of someone to take them and bring them on up into heaven. So,
right.
there is a lot of other theories in, especially in Catholicism, about purgatory and things like that. I'm skeptical but open-minded on it. And again, that's just my personal opinion. Like I said, the Bible doesn't really open on that in my thoughts, because Jesus did come in and take the keys to death, and whenever he had, that was part of the whole crucifixion thing.
Right.
So I'm open to it that it could be actual spirits of humans, of souls passed on, but I also definitely believe that there is a lot of this that is malevolent spirits that are playing as people that, like, oh, that's grandma talking to me, or oh, that's grandma trying to get my attention or something like that. Open the door, let me in.
Right.
I definitely think that these things the disembodied spirits of demons, Nephilim, however you want to call them, definitely can manipulate. I forget what term is, but yeah, they definitely are manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a lady, and that's why I asked that I knew that she had her husband passed away, and she said that he had came back and was visiting her, and she wasn't afraid of him, and he was giving her comfort because she lived out in the middle of nowhere. And she said, like, he would move things and she would smell his smell, or sometimes she said she would even hear him talking, in another room. And as time went on, he started doing things that he wouldn't normally do. He started getting kind of evil. Like, she would wake up scratched. She had a best friend that would visit her on the weekends, and she started fighting with her best friend because she was thinking that her best friend was like talking behind her back and things. And she's like, this was not me. And she actually went to the preacher of her church and told him, and he told her, he said, you've been deceived. He said, you have a demon in your home. So the preacher went and blessed her home and rebuked it. And now she's like, she feels better. Her and her friend are, getting along better now. She said the voices have stopped. She said she did hear him at the door knocking one night, telling her to please let him in, that he was cold. And she said she told him to go away in Jesus' name. She said, I just told him to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that gave me goosebumps everywhere when she said that. I was like, wow, can you imagine something knocking at the
creepy.
door? I'm cold, let me in.
Yeah. That's... maybe throw a book of matches out there or something.
Yeah.
Warm yourself up out there.
Put the Psalms at it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw my grandpa at the foot of the bed, I know that it was him, and the reason why I don't feel like it was something deceiving is because it gave me the presence that he was there to protect me from something else. Almost like there was something that he was there to protect me from. And that was why I just kind of rolled back over and went back to sleep, because I'm like, oh, okay, everything, you're good. And I said, I have seen, as we talked about last time, I've seen a lot of stuff, and it most likely is demons, shadow spirits. They're all the same thing, more or less.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think
Travis just gave me more goosebumps.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read what Travis says? He says, Mom said she saw her grandfather and she called him out. Ooh, he turned into a demon and she rebuked him.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those are the things, man, that just really bother me. I guess because, growing up, the cryptid side of it was scary, but whenever that weird stuff started happening, that's what really bothers me. That,
yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people say, because when me and Sarah went out on an investigation, she would see things that I could not see, and I don't know if it's because of how I pray. Like, before I go out on an investigation, I always pray, and I pray out loud. I believe the tongue, has the power of life and death. And I will pray, and I will tell them, you do not have the authority to attach to me, to hurt me, to present yourself to me, or to mind speak to me. You do not have that authority. And I'll plead the blood of Jesus on them. and I've never had that happen. But I've had people like Sarah that's with me that will see like a lady standing in the woods, and I don't see those things. And I sometimes wonder, is it because of how we pray sometimes? Is maybe the encounters that we have?
Maybe she has the eye to see through that, or see through the veil there on the other side.
Yeah, she took a picture of it. It's on the beginning of the live. You'll see a picture of her standing next to a tree. She actually took a photo of it, but Mike still couldn't see it. Even he saw it in the photo, but he could not see the lady.
That's interesting. It's actually a theory that I have on a lot of these Bigfoot photos that people said, Lord help them. People bring in, we call them blob squatches, or the red circles are like, and some of us are like, there's nothing, there's, to us, or to me, I'm looking at it and like, there's nothing there, but to that person, they see it. They see it. So maybe that particular person has the gift of sight to see something that is there that's not visible to us or to another person,
or at least the gift to have a red marker.
That too. But I truly do think that some people can see stuff that other people can't.
Oh, sure.
Right. That's the cameraman. And then Amanda said something I thought was interesting that I didn't know too. I was watching on your TikTok. You said that Canada, France, and Germany and Russia have Bigfoot as a protected species.
Yes, I'm actually still looking into that because I did get that information from another coworker there at the museum, Matt. And he said in the 1960s, in France, Germany, and Russia have it on their endangered species list. And I'm still trying to find more information about that on the interwebs. And so I've started digging into older books of older things. So hopefully I can find more tangible, evidence of that. But it is well known. I think even there in Oklahoma, one of your counties or something like that has it, not necessarily as an endangered species, but as a protected animal, or one place I know you can have to have you can get a hunting permit to hunt this thing. And then in other places, especially in the Pacific Northwest, several counties, especially in Washington State, have it as a protected species.
Yeah, it's actually shown on the where they list all the animals that live in the woods. I think it's Oregon or Washington or California. Shows it on there as one of the animals listed in their park is a Bigfoot. Yeah.
I think Oklahoma actually put a bounty on one. They're offering.
That's it. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, they had the bounty on it. It was either them or Texas. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Oklahoma. Yeah, they put a bounty on a body. If you can get a body, then they will pay you so much money for the body, which is kind of scary because, I mean, you get, enough guys out with spotlights and rifles, and you're walking around in a ghillie suit deer hunting. Yeah.
And I'm looking at my phone right now because it's funny we were talking about because I literally just found some information about those the other day, and I took screenshots. And for Olympia, Washington, it was on 1970s 70. They had a put it up for Sasquatch's protected thing by the governor then. And then there's the a copy of the article for it there of it being protected.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to save these little things so I can add that to my collection of research.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the government knows. I mean, they wouldn't be protecting them, and they wouldn't be, I don't know. It seems like it's almost like they dared Oklahoma to try to get a body. It's like they almost know that the chances of them getting a body is impossible or close to impossible.
Yeah.
I don't think they would give a say, okay, well, if you go get one,
that or they already have one, so there's like, what's the point of making the good old peons out here try to get one for them when they already have one?
And if you do get one, it's going to disappear once it hits
Real
the
quick.
news. Yes. So you'll never see that.
Yeah, I don't know that I would want one. I think that if you were to have to defend yourself, that it may be better not to turn that in, because it may not just be it that goes missing. It may be everyone else.
We've seen that. Yeah. How many researchers that were close to getting stuff end up being dead by some kind of weird reason?
Right.
Yep.
Or just suddenly disappear off the radar.
Right. Yeah.
Because it blows my mind, just the 411 cases where they talk about the kids that go missing, and then just from being an investigator, I try to do it like I would any other case with any human, but whenever you look at some of the things that happen, they're just not, they don't make sense. Like, why are their clothes removed and folded and placed? What is the
that's
are they doing it to make them more like them because they don't wear clothes? Is it to to get rid of the human side, to try to, I don't know. It's
yeah, there's definitely more to Bigfoot and the other thing, cryptids, and that missing 411 phenomenon. To me, there's something much more nefarious involved in that, for sure.
Yeah,
which totally goes into the portals and the government and all kinds of ugly, nasty things.
Yeah, my opinion is the national parks were not made for us.
Yep.
Right.
I think Teddy Roosevelt knew why to make them.
Well, like in Scott Carpenter's book, I noticed that Scott Carpenter, a lot of times, if you watch, he tells you, don't investigate and pursue these. He's trying to tell people, don't do that. Don't go into the wood. Don't go into the woods alone. At one point, he even, whenever I think it first happened, I think he was to the point where he was even saying, don't even take your children to the woods. And then later on, he changed his stance on it a little bit. And I understand where he's coming from, because whenever that happened to me as a kid, that really did. It ruined a lot of things for me, like hunting and fishing. And, I didn't want to go alone. I didn't want to go down there and go fishing and hunting alone. I would always call my friends, hey, are you off tomorrow? You want to go fishing? And because you don't want to go down there and something happen and be alone. And then, of course, you don't want to tell a lot of people either, hey, I'm afraid to go down there alone because I'm afraid Bigfoot might get me. People, laugh at you. But until they go down there and they end up having an encounter, then they're like,
right,
man, something happened the other night to me, and I don't know what it was,
Yeah, it's one of the many reasons why I choose not to be a quote unquote boots on the ground going and looking in the woods for Bigfoot researcher. I hate the term researcher. I don't claim myself to be that. But anyway, that's why I lean more towards my research and stuff like this.
Right.
Instead, because I don't want to accidentally bring something home. I don't want something to take me home to their home. And, I just don't want to even risk opening up that Pandora's box. So,
and me coming from a background to where it did follow my uncle home, and my mom and them living through it as children, and then us grandkids having to live through it as well. Granny and grandpa were alive. It was not something that was like, oh, cool, we get to investigate Bigfoot. I mean, we cried. We were terrified at night. We didn't want to be there at night. I remember Mom and Dad would go down there, and I'd tell them, can we please leave before dark? You promise we can leave before dark. I mean, it was not fun. And I understand where Scott was coming from that, because once they started, it endangered everybody. Like my little niece, she was outside playing, and we don't know what would have happened, but thank God that she was afraid and ran inside, because she was playing outside during the day by herself in the yard. And whatever this was, it stuck its hairy arm out of the grass and was telling her to come here.
Mm.
And she was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. Luckily, she cried and she ran to my aunt and told her, there was a man in the weeds trying to get her to come here. But if she would have went to it out, and she was alone, one of the very rare occasions that she would have been alone because my grandma had had a stroke. So it wasn't on a holiday to where all of us kids were normally out there playing. It was her mom was staying the weekend to take care of my granny, and she had went outside and was playing by herself. So she was secluded. And that's whenever it was trying to get her, come here. And these things did come in my granny's house. It wasn't like they were always outside. They did come in the house, and they seen it standing in the doorway. It ran its hand across the bottom of my aunt's foot laying in bed. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's like
yeah.
They will follow you home, and you may end up getting more than what you want.
Exactly.
Because,
you may get more than what you ask for.
Yeah, I mean, it killed my dog. I don't know if I told you about that, but it killed my dog.
I think I remember you saying that. Yes.
Yeah, and that really tore me up, because I was just so positive when I went to my granny's. I took my big Rottweiler. He was huge. His name was Zeus, and I mean, he was huge, and he wasn't scared of anything. And man, he took off around the back of the house, and it sounded like a huge dog fight. And he comes back around. I mean, he didn't kill him at the time, but he succumbed to his injury later. But he come from the back of the house, and it lasted a while. It sounded terrible. So, I mean, whatever it was, it definitely it killed my dog, and it was scary. My granny was in the bathroom, and it stuck its arm through the window, and it was knocking the shampoo and stuff off while she was in the restroom. I mean, it was not fun times. It was almost like a nightmare sometimes. You hated being down there because I didn't like hearing it. I hated it. I remember sitting on the couch, and I would put the blanket over my head because I would just sit on the couch and just be scared to death that, I was going to see it looking in the window or something, and I didn't want to see it. I didn't even want to see it.
It's terrifying.
Mike, did you know Mike shot one? Amanda?
You might have mentioned that before. I can't remember. Or you said you've shot one or you've shot at one?
I got this idea that I was going to, take care of it for Granny, me and my cousin. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why we got this idea because my uncles couldn't take care of it and they were all in Vietnam and everything. But we came up with this plan that they always thought that whatever it was, it wanted my mom the most. It was always the worst when my mom would stay with my granny after she had her stroke. So we told my mom, you go ahead and you go down there, and we're not going to go this time. We wasn't going to stay in the house with her. We were going to walk down through the pastures and try to surprise it. So my mom went down there like she was alone, and she went in, carried her suitcases all in to stay, the weekend. And we grab our guns, and me and my cousin, we go across the fields to my granny's. Well, granny's was kind of at the bottom of a hill, and there was some old oil tanks that set up on top of the hill. So we climbed up on top of those where we could see the house. And the front yard was pretty lit from the yard light, and then the back of the house was pretty dim where the light would have to go through the shade trees. So we're laying up there, and I had a 410, and my cousin had a 22. I don't even know what I was doing with a 410 and a 22 hunting this thing, but we're laying up there, and while we're laying up there, we see it at the back of the house. I can see, and of course, at the distance it was at, it looked like somebody, like a real tall, big person walking, and we was like, it's there. So we start cutting across the pasture to try to come up on it, and whenever we get up there, it already knew we was coming. It took off and went down into the hog pasture. There was a pond down there, and the pond had dried up and it was full of cattails, and it went into the cattails. So we went into the cattails, and the way we went in, Grandpa had a piece of tin that was laid over, like where the pond would overflow. Mm-hmm. There was an overflow, and he had a piece of tin over it where you could walk across the overflow. So we walked across the overflow into the cattails. And whenever we got in there, it wasn't nothing that was like huge. It come running up on us in the cattails. And whenever it did, I shot it, point blank shot it with my 410, just boom. And my cousin, he emptied his 22 on it. It ran over and it fell on that 10. It just fell. And I was like, oh, we killed it. We finally killed this thing. So I'm reloading my gun because it's a bolt action single shot 410. And my cousin's trying to throw some bullets in his gun. And when he does, it raises up and it runs up from us up behind the chicken house. So we look on the ground, and I hunt a lot. I could tell that what we had shot had to be hit either in an artery or a organ because it was the dark blood, the very oxygenated blood. You knew that it was a good hit.
Yeah,
and
I was about to ask you where you think you shot it at, especially make it fall.
It was probably around the sternum area, probably. Mm-hmm. Is where I would have shot because it was a hip shot. When it came up, I just raised my gun and shot because it was like right there. So I just kind of shot. The blood was very dark. It looked like deer blood or, a pig or something you was hunting. It wasn't like it was green or glowing or anything. It was like regular blood. It went up and it went behind the chicken house. Well, whenever we shot, my mom, of course, heard us shooting. So she came out and drove the car around and had the headlight shining on the chicken house and kind of where we was at. It ran behind the chicken house. So we went up to my mom and we could hear it behind the chicken house scratching, like running its nails down the tin, and it was growling. It was like, not like a growl like a dog. It was kind of like a heavy breathing, kind of like just like a like that. And we were like, oh, we got it, So my mom, we're wanting to go back there. And she's like, no, y'all ain't going back there. So she calls her brother, and he comes down with my dad. Well, they pull in. When they pull in, they aim their headlights toward the chicken house. Whatever it was takes off running from the chicken house. And it takes off running toward the big pond, which was at the back of the property. It took off running, and it had something over its back. And it ran all the way off that night, and we were in there talking, and they thought probably what it had done was took a pig or something, was their first guess, or it had grabbed something. But the next day when they went out there was nothing missing. All the pigs were there. Wasn't anything missing. So my uncle told me what he thought probably happened, and he said, you're probably very lucky. He thinks that we shot a juvenile, and it ran up behind that chicken house, and the adult took off running with it, and that's what we seen over its back was it running with the other one. He said, if you would have went up behind that chicken house, he said that probably would have been the end of you boys. So that always kind of scared us,
That's terrifying. What do you ever get a decent look at it?
All I could tell when we was in the cattails is whenever it ran up to me, it was just like if you were outside with somebody in the dark. It was a big black silhouette. It wasn't huge. It wasn't like people describe, this huge. It wasn't even as tall as me. It was probably, I would say, like 5'5", something like that. It wasn't huge. And, but the one we seen at the back of the house that made us go up the first, it was a lot bigger. So I don't know if maybe when the big one went toward the hog pasture, if maybe it went behind the chicken house and maybe the juvenile was in the pond and we happened to go upon the juvenile, maybe. I don't know. But I know that my uncle always said we got really lucky. He said, y'all were really lucky that night. He said, because if you all would have went behind that chicken house, he said, it probably would have been bad.
Sounds like it for sure.
Yeah.
And then the next day, we think it retaliated. The next morning, my grandma called my mom and everybody. She was upset. And when they went down there, one of the sows, its heads had been cut off and was stuck on the gate post.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So they always said it was probably because of what we done. We had made it mad because it had never hurt none of the animals before that except for the chicken that it beat on the back door.
It's terrifying.
So I don't know if it was retaliation maybe for what we had done, or I don't know.
I don't know. Was it before or after that when it started getting really like aggressive, where it would be coming around, putting its arm in the windows and stuff like that? Was that just constantly ever since you were little up until then? Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
The only time it got really aggressive, like where it hurt the animals, was just a little bit of time after I shot it, and that's whenever it done that to the pig. And then it took a chicken, one of Grandpa's chickens, a hen actually, and we was in the house one night, and we thought it was going to come in because it was like pounding on the back door. It had never done that. It would like turn the doorknob and slap it or something. But that night it was pounding on the door, and we called the sheriff. And of course, the sheriff's about an hour away from our house out there because we're in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, well, we'll try to get a deputy out there. So we're all in the house, and it's just like beating on the back door. And the next morning when we got up and went out there, it had grabbed one of the hens by the legs and had beat the hen on the back door. There was like blood and feathers all over the back door. And then the chicken was laying out there all ripped up. And then after that, it kind of just went back to normal.
You think
as normal as it could be.
Yeah, as normal as it can be, right? Do you think the pig head that it did it, for lack of did it rip it off, or do you think it found some kind of tool and cut it off? Was you able to?
I don't remember.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I just remember the head being off, and I remember it being on the fence post, and that was like freaked us out because the fence post was covered, was covered in blood.
It sounds like any kind of horror movie.
Yeah.
And the weird thing was, it didn't take the body. We would have thought at least it would have took the body and ate the pig, but it didn't.
Yeah, it definitely was leaving that as a sign. If it didn't take the body, that's terrifying. Yeah,
it just left the body. And this was a big sow. It was a big sow, huge sow, and it had just took the head off of it. So I don't know if it was telling us, that you better quit or you're going to be next on the fence post or what. But it was, I know my uncle, he took it very serious because my uncle was always really cool. He would always tell us, stories about like growing up and the things that they went through and, how scary it was and some of the things it done and what it looked like, whenever he seen it. And so he was always really cool. He would play with the kids a lot. And that was the first time I could actually remember my uncle actually like setting me and my cousin down. And he wasn't being mean, but he was very stern. And he told us, he said, you all's got to quit this shit. And we was like, what? He said, y'all out there doing that and you hurt these things. He said, you don't know what they're going to do. He said, leave it alone. He was very stern with us. So we knew that he was serious. And I think he was afraid that we were going to get hurt, because we were trying to be tough. And whenever the dogs would bark or something, we were going outside trying to find it, me and my cousin. And he was like, y'all are being dumb. He said, y'all are going to go out there and you're going to run onto something you don't want to see. He said, trust me, I've seen it. He said, you don't want to see it. And that's whenever my mom told me about the thing that looked up over the wall of the house whenever the roof was off because the back part of the house had burnt. It had no bottom jaw. It just had top teeth and sunken in eyes. And they said it looked up over the side of the wall at them.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
So did it take any organs? Travis asked.
Nope, the whole thing was there. And you could tell where it done it too, because the pig was laying down by the hog houses and there was a blood trail all the way up to the fence post. And it wasn't just like set on there. This thing was like jammed on there. It was on there. And the whole fence post was blood where it had ran down the wood. So I always wondered, did what we shot, did it die? Did we injure it? Because my uncle said it probably didn't die because he said if it would have died, it probably would have been worse on us.
That's what I would think.
That would be my thinking as well.
Yeah. 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 If you killed it, I think it would have got revenge on all of you.
And I think about that sometimes when I'm down there, investigating in the woods. I think, does it remember me? Does it know that I'm the one that hurt one of them?
That would be my guess.
But I think a lot of people don't understand that. It's fun to go out and feel like you're chasing this creature. It's an adrenaline rush. It's fun. It's exciting. But I can tell them, firsthand that when it actually happens, it sucks. I mean, it's not fun. And whenever it's at your home, and your animals, your dogs, your livestock, your family, whenever they start getting, they could be hurt. You really, it changes a lot of things, because these things, we don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they might be there, for no telling how long and never hurt you. And then one day, a grandchild goes missing, and we used to think about that because there was a little boy that lived just a little ways from where we live now. And he had a mental condition. He would play outside. And all of a sudden, he started telling his mom that he had a friend. And his mom thought that he had just had an imaginary friend. And his dad asked him one night, he's like, "So tell me about your friend," And the little boy told him, he said, "Well, he's a hairy man that lives in the woods." And they were like, "Oh, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, he's nice to me. And we play." And he said he brought him persimmons and berries and stuff like that. And of course, they didn't believe him. They thought it was just an imaginary friend that, he was outside playing until he started like doing things different. He started, he would stay out later at night. He didn't want to come inside. He would sit at the back of the property they lived on the river. Their property went down to the river, and there was like their property, and then you had their fence, and then there was trees, and then you had the bluff that dropped down to the river bottoms. And he would sit at the back of the fence, and he would talk to whatever was in those trees. And they thought that he was just had an imaginary friend. Well, he continued to do this until one night he didn't come home. And he would come home, and they asked him, they said, "Where you been?" And he said, "I've been with my friend." And he was sneaking out of his bedroom window and would be gone all night. And this was nothing that this kid had ever done. And his mom, back then, I guess they weren't as strict as we are now, but he wasn't home for dinner. So she would take like a dinner plate for him, and she would set it on the back steps, and he would come and get the plate and eat, I guess. But then eventually one day he did not ever come home, and they had a big search for him, and they never found him. So they don't know where he went, if he went with it or what happened.
Yep. That would be scary.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people speculated that he, climbed the fence and drowned in the river. And then, a lot of the old timers that knew about Bigfoot, they all said that, he probably ran off with them and lived with them. But I don't know if a human could survive out like that, like they do. I don't know how long a child could live, in the woods.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
No.
Can only maybe hope they took them to the other side of the veil and everything is sunshine and rainbows and happiness there for him. He went to the good side or something, and not something bad happened. We'll try to think positive thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that movie? The little show, Land of the Lost or whatever.
Yeah. What was that thing called? Chalky or something?
Yeah. But it I don't know. You think back on things, and whenever just being down there, you wonder, why did it do what it did? I mean, it didn't take the chickens, it didn't take the pigs, it didn't tear nothing up. It ain't like it was out there, tearing up things or stealing feed or anything like that. It was just pretty much window peeking, beating on the house. I mean, that was mostly what it would do, because all the girls would always talk about, like my aunt one time, she was sitting in the front room, and the air conditioner that had finally got put in, Granny never put a blanket above it at the time, and she's watching TV, and the next thing she said she knows, she looks up and she's like, they had a dog named Scout. He was a German Shepherd, and she's like, how did Scout get up on top of that air conditioner? What is he doing? And then she opened the front door to go get him down because they was afraid he was going to tear the air conditioner out of the window, and Scout's laying on the front porch. So there was some kind of a dog looking in the window at her from outside above the air conditioner. But she thought it was the dog outside was jumping up there after something. So, I mean, it would watch you inside of the house if it could.
So it sounds like it was a bunch of several different entities, Bigfoot, Dogman type thing, and then whatever the thing was with no lower jaw. I don't even.
Right.
Don't want to picture that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely some like Resident Evil kind of things going on there.
Yeah.
And but the in the kitchen, like I was telling you, they would hear it sound like beans would be poured all over the floor. And they would get up and go to the kitchen, and there was nothing in the kitchen. Or, just there was weird things that also would happen that weren't cryptid at all. And that's why I always thought they were connected somehow, that they're, because it's scary. It was scary. I remember it was really scary down there, and you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's nobody you can go get help from. I mean, you could yell all you wanted. There ain't nobody going to hear you down there. And that was another thing that always scared us, because it was like, there's nobody around to help us. It was just us. I mean, if it comes in the house, there's nobody to help.
Yeah.
It was just a different time, I guess. And now, of course, they said it's gone after Granny passed away. It moved on, I guess. Waiting for the next person to go out hunting these things, and follow them home, I guess.
That's crazy. That is just crazy.
And then Scott, I gave your picture to Travis. I did give it to him. He said that was a scary looking photograph.
Yeah,
Scott
it is. It's creepy.
Scott had a demon in his TV. So, or Travis,
I remember y'all talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was creepy. Yep.
But that was just some of the things that had happened. I mean, I don't know. I've never casted anything. I'd like to visit the museum you work at and see those things, because I've never casted anything. I mean, to us, it was always like, there's a footprint, or we never thought about, keeping anything. People get mad at me because I brought a stick home. I found a stick that was left on my windshield wiper that was sharpened.
Oh, wow.
When we went down there, and I brought it home, and everybody said, no, you shouldn't bring that home. But I kept it. I haven't had anything get me yet.
Yeah.
And Amanda, I've kept you over 2 hours.
So I don't even know what time it is. Oh, wow. Yeah, we've gone long again.
Yeah, we get to talking. But I want you to go ahead and tell everybody about the conference you're going to be at, the museum, your TikTok page, where they can find you and everything, because you do have a lot of good information.
Well, thank you. I'm trying. It definitely molded from what I originally thought I would be doing to what it is now. And we're Travis, yes, the museum is very, very grateful to your dad and everything that he put out there for the Bigfoot world, for sure.
Yes.
Hopefully he can make it to see his photo is actually on the Hall of Fame out there. So much love. But yeah, the museum I work for is Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, owned by David Becerra and his wife Melinda. And yeah, it's got the claim to fame. You guys like the skull of the falcon they gave Dad? Probably. Yeah, reach out to David, or heck, reach out to me. I'll get y'all in contact for sure. That would be amazing. And so yeah, David Becerra owns and runs the museum. Like I said, I just have the great pleasure of working there for him and helping run the museum daily. And then I myself, started Amanda the Bigfoot Lady about a year ago, and I took the name Amanda the Bigfoot Lady as a nickname that's my husband gave me, because I'm the Bigfoot Lady. I work at the museum. He always sends people, he go talk to the crazy Bigfoot lady at the museum. So I just ran with that. It stuck, and people seem to like it, so I'm running with it. And yeah, I started making TikToks as just a fun way to make little memes, which I still make a lot. As you've seen on my TikTok and Instagram pages, I'm an internet nerd. I like memes, and people started asking me questions, so I just started answering and giving it back. And I saw a need there at the museum. People are always coming because they do bring, like I said, it's a family attraction, so they're always bringing the kids in as a way for, was like, well, where's a good place for kids to get good information about this it's going to be family friendly. It's not going to have cussing and different subject matters and things like that. They'll keep it PG. And as as I'm talking and sharing all this information with children every day and working at the museum, why not put it out on here so that way other people can have it and share it? So that's kind of where I'm going with that. And in doing that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I got invited by BigfootTalk.com to come and be a guest speaker at the first annual Encounters Conference here. He's going to have it in Jonesboro, Georgia. And you can just go to EncountersConference.com to go and get tickets for that and more information. And then, of course, if you want to check out any of my stuff, just look for Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on any social media platforms. TikTok, of course, is my main one. Instagram, Facebook. I'm starting to transition some stuff over to YouTube. It's literally just copy paste of my TikTok. And you can also reach out to me at AmandaTheBigfootLady@gmail.com. And yeah, I would love to talk to anybody, share anything. And yeah, I'm an open book. Ask me anything and I'll talk to you too.
I found a lot of information, and yeah, go check her TikTok out and everything. Amanda has a lot of information. I learned a lot just by listening to your TikTok. It made me really wonder a lot of things, and I didn't know a lot of the things that I found on there that you go into, and I just barely even touched the top of your TikTok. You have so many videos out there. I was like, wow, I didn't know you had that many videos.
I didn't realize I did either. And it may have been one of y'all. I got a bunch of notifications earlier. I was like, my phone was just blowing up from like. I was like, have I really posted that many videos?
That was probably me.
I was like, have I really posted that many videos? Okay, I guess I have. And like I said, it's just morphed into its own thing. People are asking me questions, so I'm sharing what knowledge I have. If I don't know, I'll try to find the best information that I have or can get. And like I said, we're all on this learning experience together, because anybody can say that they're an expert. There are no experts in this field. No. There are people who have knowledge of it in one aspect or another, but there are no experts. So I'm definitely not one. So like I said, everybody is along for the ride with me as we're learning about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all still learning. We're just barely scratching the top of what these really are.
Oh, absolutely.
We probably
barely touched the surface of it all.
We would probably not even understand all of it if we were to have it in front of us. I think that they come from a lot higher source than what we're used to dealing with. And I think some of them still possess angelic abilities. I think they still have abilities beyond what we understand in our everyday thinking. But Amanda, I appreciate you coming on, and we'd like to have you back again sometime. You have a lot of information, and I always learn something when I'm. Oh yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot just by talking to you. It's interesting to talk with somebody that does have a lot of information, and where you work, you get a lot of information, and I'm sure a lot of stories and encounters.
Oh yeah, we could go on for another 2 or 3 episodes of just stories that I've heard there. Yeah, I've heard some really very, very interesting ones. I mean, even just this past week, I've taken in 2 separate reports. So
we're going to have you back and let you go over some of the reports with us, and that would be real interesting too. I'd like to hear those.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm down for part 3.
All right, Amanda. Well, I'm going to let you run and get you some rest tonight. And we, as always, we appreciate you. And guys, go support
you, Amanda.
You're very welcome, guys. It's nice seeing y'all again. Jess, nice meeting you guys.
You'll learn a lot.
Yes.
If I don't see y'all before then, Merry Christmas to all y'all, and Merry Christmas to the audience out there.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you also. Thank you for coming again. It's always, man, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Good night. She does have a lot of information, man. She just I went on her TikToks today, and just in the TikTok, she has so much information. I enjoy talking to her. I mean, she's one of the people you could just keep talking to. It's amazing. And she works in a great place too to get information. People bringing you information. Yeah. I'm sure she gets some pretty good encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine all the stories she gets.
Right, because people ain't gonna, they're gonna talk there more about their encounter than they would just to anybody, just so they don't get ridiculed.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure she hears a lot.
Mm-hmm. And that is a problem, like what you said. People getting ridiculed so much over, like the Sierra Sounds. People saying, "Oh, those ain't real." I think every time somebody comes with something good, somebody always has to attack them.
Right.
And I think a lot of information is held back because people are afraid of the attacks. That's going to come with what they do find, because there's so many people out there that jealousy sometimes gets in the way of knowledge. And people,
definitely.
This guy found this out, I got to make sure to make him look like a liar because they might think he's smarter than me,
Mm-hmm.
It's sad whenever we should be working together, sharing information and trying to come up with, a plan or an idea or even a theory, at times to try to figure out what these things are.
Well, I got a suggestion. Let's bring Amanda and Travis on at the same time, and have a live. That would be awesome.
Yeah, everybody bring a pillow.
Walk around, stretch.
We could just tag team.
Yeah.
Take a break. Bring in somebody else.
that would be a great show, no doubt.
Yeah, it would.
That would be a very informative. We'll have to put that together. Maybe after the first of the year, we can put that together. Well, guys, I think we probably ought to stretch our backs and see if we can still feel our feet.
I can't even feel my back.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm sort of jealous because I seen Jesse laying in the corner like, I'm like, oh, my back.
I've heard people saying that those gaming chairs are supposed to be really good. I don't know. They say that they're comfortable.
They are comfortable. Yes.
I've heard they are. They say they're very comfortable. They're supportive and everything. I may have to get one of those.
Yeah. The way you lay in them, they just support everything real comfortable. You can sit in them for hours and not even get hurt or numb.
Maybe I need to get one of those too.
Yeah.
That's what everybody was telling me. I've had a lot of people email me and everything. They're like, Mike, you need to get a gamer chair. And they were saying that you can plug your headset actually into the chair and everything. So
right. Yeah, some chairs have everything built into them.
I'd be
Back
afraid if it had.
massager too.
Well, no, I don't want. I don't want the back massager. I'd end up snoring in front of everybody if I have one of those.
Or we think you had technical difficulty because it was vibrating.
Boy, Mike's really nervous tonight.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, if you would, if you want to say your last words, if you will.
My last words. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Again, this channel wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everybody here following. And God bless. Merry Christmas. And yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully we'll see Hunter's home soon.
And don't forget your channel. We're going to do a live on, what is it, the 23rd?
Yeah.
Of December.
Yes.
We will be live with Jessie and her encounter.
Yes.
Wasn't an encounter, just an investigation.
Well, investigation of Bray Road.
Bray Road, yeah.
Bray Road.
Bray Road.
I can't talk good, so. All right. Okay. Yes, we want to thank everybody for the support again. We got good news, which you all have read about. And thank you for all your support. Thank you for the support for the channel. And God bless everybody and Merry Christmas. But I'm sure we'll see you before then. Over.
Oh, yeah. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight and continuing to support us. It means a lot to us. Your support to me and my family has meant a lot. I know y'all have seen the short that I've released, or most of you have. I'll just reiterate just a little bit of what I can say is we expect Hunter to be home within the next few weeks.
Amen.
That's all I can say at this time. It's all I'm allowed to say at this time, but that was the statement that I was allowed to give. But that is what we anticipate. We anticipate that will happen within the next few weeks. Everything seems to be going good and as planned. The lies have been brought to light is all I'm going to say. It's been a long over a year long, and I'm glad that it's finally unwinding and coming to an end. On my part, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more come out on the other end, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. A lot of people's came forward. A lot of great channels have came forward. In our suggestion on our YouTube channel, I have a place at the bottom where I can suggest channels to be supported. We're going to be adding a lot more names down there. Y'all will see those coming up eventually. We will get those on there. A lot of channels have reached out to us. A lot of support. And again, you know, all glory to God. There's nothing that I done. God done it.
Amen.
He just used me as a tool to do his will. And I'm going to end tonight with saying this. My God is the God of Israel. My God is the God of the Bible. The Bible is the word of God. And that God's word and his will prevail. And just like in Egypt, whenever Pharaoh said to his little g God, his God is God. And I think that has been shown. Y'all have a great night. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't
Good night, everybody.
And we'll see you on the next one. And don't forget, go support Amanda. She's got a lot of information. Good night.
Good night.